Welcome to the Nurture Pod. My name is Iris Sullivan Dare, and I'm here with the beautiful Ginger Edwards. And this is the place where we explore moving towards nurture culture. It's kind of that, and by looking at kind of what is, but also considering like this huge expanded sample space of what's possible and kind of, yeah, like how do you negotiate towards what's possible?
Beautiful. Like that.
It changes every week.
Hi, Iris.
Hello.
What are you nurturing this week?
I am. I did some writing on Monday, and I had this I'm in acting. I'm not usually this isn't really New Year's resolutions because I never do those, but I do often do kind of like a think about the year ahead thing. And I did a big writing session about like everything I'm grateful for right now. And also how do I want to show up in the world? And I realized that for me, nurturing actually, where's my book? Nurturing my schedule is kind of like the heart of it. And now I'm like, of course, I have it so beautifully written out. I don't know what I did with it, but I was going to read you what I wrote, but it's not right here on the table. So specifically, I tend to be very, you know how it's like when you're like, I think about like the different strategies for trying to like deal with anxiety and operating in the world. And a lot of them are subconscious and they're kind of in your blind spots, but usually there's some sort of fight, flight, freeze thing. And it's like that. What stops me from doing things? It's like, it's not necessarily like a huge thing, right? Like if you have this thing that you want to do, like if I have a thing that I want to do, but if I have something else on my to-do list that seems like it should be a higher priority, it kind of shuts me down, even if I kind of have some time and space, because I should be doing the thing that's a higher priority. Does that make sense? And so anyway, it's problematic if I have like work responsibilities in which I'm beholden to someone else who's writing a paycheck for me, or art things that I desire to do. And if I have a deadline, how that overlays what I have, how I operate, and what I feel an inner permission for, right? Is really, really, really variable. And I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but I decided that yesterday I was like, okay, here's all these things that I kind of have to do. I'm getting ready to go back in the classroom, yada, 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 yada. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, you know what I really need to do is kind of get my space physically reset. Like, because I still haven't put away everything from 2 art shows. Like it's still, because my boys came home and like, you know, it's like and so I was like, okay, how about, and I knew I had work yesterday afternoon. I had a Zoom meeting and some work to do. And I was like, instead of spending my whole day getting prepared for that, which is what I would usually do, I thought I need to break out of that. And I'm like, what if I just look at this and it's like, all right, I have 5 hours between now and when I'm beholden to be someplace else. What if I dedicate the next 5 hours to making my life better?
Okay.
And so and it was like, oh, my one thing that I have to do is make my life better. What can I do to make my life better? And I just kind of
Top
looked
priority.
around.
Yep.
What's that? That's the
Top
top priority
priority.
for the next
Nope.
5 hours.
Okay.
And then it will change at the end of this 5 hours. Then I will have this other thing that I have to do, because things will happen. Like I'll have a class that I'm going to teach, like a workshop, like a few day workshop. It will take up 40% of my brain space for 6 months.
Mm. Oh, wow.
Right. Like a lot. Like it's going to be like in my brain a lot. And so like part of how this happened, sorry, this is really all over the place. Part of how this happened is like I use a meditation app, Headspace. I meditate without the app too, but like it's like my early morning one is like, because it's comforting, and like I've been doing it for years. And so it's like, but during that meditation at the very end, they always say, let your mind release, stop, you let your mind do whatever your mind wants to do. And that is the best minute and a half of the 20-minute meditation every time. My mind's like, oh, thank God. Okay, I can just be, that is,
Oh.
sometimes that's the only moment that I'm in that meditation zone, is
Hmm.
in that when he says, when he like there's big gaps, he's not talking the whole time, there's big gaps, and it's like, you're counting your breaths, or you're just paying attention to your breaths. And then when he says, you let your mind do whatever your mind wants to do, it's like my mind's like, well, fuck, thank God, what my mind wants to do is meditate. So like I was like, oh, why don't I do that more for myself in my waking life? So that's the spirit
Yeah.
of it, is what if I get to do whatever I want for this succinct period of time? And so what I did was tore apart my laundry room, and which is also the main, it's where the shower is. There's a bathroom in there too. So it's like it's like kind of like, yeah, it's like a very active room, and it's been a big mess. And it felt great. Like,
Yeah.
and I just totally, yeah, it looks fantastic. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, okay, tomorrow I have all this stuff I had to work today. And so it's like, I don't get to do that, but it's like, all right, when's my next day that I get to have a distinct number of hours that are the make my life better moments?
Hmm.
And so then I went to my calendar, and I've watercolored out. It's like, okay, these are days
Nice.
which I am not at work.
Mm-hmm.
These are the days that I need to protect within an inch of my life from being nickel and dimed
Mm.
with little like whatevers. Like
Yeah.
I want, and so like I haven't gotten my whole
Um,
book filled in. I make my own planner every year, so it's not all physically written in. All the weeks aren't yet. I've all the months in there, but, and I'm like, oh my God, I get to go in and block out, like, it's people talk
yeah.
about your schedule, and it's like, oh, block out time for yourself, blah, blah. That's never worked once, but this feels like,
Well, this is
and maybe,
what you're doing is what my coach always said to do is go block that time out first, and then everything else gets to work around that. Like that's the non-negotiable. Yeah,
but
time
it's
you
tough.
want.
Like it's tough because it's just never, I've known that,
Mm-hmm.
but like,
Oh, it's hard to hold it for sure.
it's hard to
Because
hold it,
yeah,
especially when
I
you
like
work.
that term nickel and dimed. That definitely feels like what happens. The culture nickel and dimes us, like just one thing
Everything.
after another. Emails come in and a text, and then this, and then somebody wants this, and yeah, your day is gone so quickly, especially when it's like dark at 4 o'clock. I mean, this
Yes, yes,
January, you
yes,
really are like, I have
yes,
this very small window if I want to get
yes.
things done. And yeah, after I do a morning routine, and I mean, really, it's the absurdity of what is asked of us in the culture to try to be like, like we're supposed to have a morning routine, we're supposed to eat well, and it means we're supposed to be cooking, and we're supposed to, be productive and get things done in our day. And then we're also supposed to somehow bathe and take care of our, hygiene, and clean our
Yes.
houses, and have relationships, and answer all of our emails, and do creative things, and have, there isn't enough. I mean, there really just isn't enough time for anyone to do all that shit. Like we
No,
cannot,
no.
nobody,
Unless you have a staff that's
unless you have a
dedicated,
staff of
that's
people, that's
dedicated
great.
to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. If you have a personal assistant and a staff, but I mean, seriously, it's just, the things that are put on the women's plates, I say specifically, because we are women, and that's like, it's, you know, the plate is very full of like all the things that we're supposed to be taking care of and perfecting. And then there was always like, yeah, and then would be spiritual enlightenment, and then, you know, make time for, you know, genuine connection with your friends or your blah blah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it's just mind boggling, really. So it is kind of radical, like you said, at that last minute where they're like, hey, now you don't have to meditate anymore. Just let your brain do it. And your brain's like, oh, great. Now I can meditate. That's a really
Yes.
interesting
Yes.
moment when you grab that. You're like, because the brain, you're controlling it. There's some level of control, even if we're, you know, doing something that we think is bettering ourselves, like, you know, like breathing or following along with a breathing exercise. The letting go part, that
Is
is
where it's
it.
at. That's
That
where it's
is
at.
it. It's the, that's where life is. I think that's where our authentic self, our soul lives, in these moments where we release. We're like, what do you just want to do? You know, and it's really amazing to realize how programmed we are to not do that. When you
It's
do it,
huge. It's huge.
yeah, and we feel wrong, we feel selfish. I mean, all of these labels start to come in when you just are like, I'm just going to do what I want. It is a radical revolutionary act, and it
Well,
shouldn't be, but it is in this place that we are in our culture right now.
Castro said to me, she's like, what if we're, we're not just inherently lazy?
Yeah, like
And it's like,
that's,
because like that
yeah,
message of like, what is
it's in
that? And
there.
it's like, which is like your whole, like when you took that the summer off, summer before last, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, wait a minute. Like,
Yep.
you know, it's like, because the reality is that like I get when the universe, when I said, all right, universe, I get to do whatever I want. What did I want? I like scrubbed the
Yeah, it's what
bathroom,
you
right?
wanted. Yeah.
And it's totally made me so happy. So it's like, I'm not fundamentally, yeah, yeah. Anyway, um,
So many layers of cultural
so
training that are underneath the surface about, yeah,
yes.
productivity, and yeah, just like all the ways that we're constantly trying to prove, you know, like, be worthy of existence.
And it also it interferes with your capacity. It interferes with my capacity to fully rest when I do have time to rest. So like we had the 2 weeks off for while the boys were home, well, you know, like the school break, and both of us, Joe and I, are working for the school district, you know, well, I'm not working for the school district, but I work in the schools. um and so like we had that time off, and it was like kind of, it was just like it went super fast for one
Mm-hmm.
thing, but also like to like walk away from my studio at the beginning of that, because everything kind of came to a head, you know, took the show down, blah blah blah, all that came to a head kind of the same time. And it was just like, well, I could either spend this time enjoying cooking and cooking a whole bunch of food and hanging out with my beloveds,
Mm-hmm.
or I can be like, I have to like get my studio cleaned up so that I can, you know, I can go at 100 miles an hour as soon as I have time in January. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, so I like walked away from like a stupendous mess, but now it's like, oh, it's so overwhelming.
Mm,
But it's like, not if I take it, not if I can turn off the hecklers,
yeah.
the like that are like, why'd you let me such a mess? And like, da, 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 da. And then
Oh my God. Yeah,
you,
totally.
yeah, anyway, I don't
And I
know.
do
This,
find that when we rest, what makes your life better when your kids are in town or whatever is like resting and not cleaning up the mess and eating food and, like, you know, hanging out and partying. That's, and then that rest serves you later when you all of a sudden are like, you know what I want to do now? I want to clean up this space. And it's legitimate. Like, it's what you want to do.
yes,
Desire.
yes,
It's
yes,
actual desire. It
yes,
is not a coming from a place of, and
should.
I said, I mean, I did too. Like, all of a sudden I was like, the sun is out. I want to go clean up those hoop houses. Like, I'm ready. I'm rested and I want to do it. Like, I want the satisfaction of seeing it done. And it is the best feeling when you come from a place of desire. Cause yeah, there's like, I don't even know how to describe it. The difference of trying to force yourself to do something versus the and intentional, like, this is what I want to do. It's everything. It's like pure Shakti, you know, it's like when they talk about the
Yes,
goddess as being a force of desire in in the world. Like, this is what the goddess is what we, it's the, all of a sudden we just want this, we want to create, we want to transform, we want to make things happen. And when Shakti moves and it comes through, it's like blissful. It's really interesting.
Yes.
And so aligning with desire is something that, I mean, fundamentally we're taught not to do, like
Well,
from a
because
very early age.
it's super aligned, as though to align with desire is absolutely seen as, that can only mean hedonistic. It only can be hedonism, like
Right, because
desire.
in this kind of thinking of desire would lead you down a dark road, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
the
like we're going to be
idea,
in
is
an
like, oh,
opium
if you give in
den.
to desire, well, then desires are gonna, gonna be, doing drugs in the gutter, and
Yeah.
having sex with whoever stands, walks up and is like, whatever, it's like, oh, desire. And that's actually not how Shakti works. It is
Right.
because it's what we desire is connected to our soul urge as to like where we are going on our path, and it's completely unique to every individual, and it changes all the time. It's like
It's
nature
like a
changing all the
compass.
time.
It's like a compass. It's
Yeah,
not.
exactly. It's actually, it's more intuitive. It's like, this is where your energy is flowing right now. And we spend so much time, right, on all these like protocols and routines. And I do think that daily routines are great. Like, there's something about frequency. I was just listening to, again, that really good podcast I'm into right now called The Emerald, but he talks about the goddess on this one episode, and he's talking about how, the chanting, really the goddess, like in India and stuff, and Shakti is all about trance states. Like, it's not about like, oh, invoke, Artemis so
Ishtar.
you can go do this thing, or, this goddess Sarasvati will help you publish your manuscript. And like how we talk about the goddess in the Western world, it's like all
Yeah.
about how to, this thing is going to get
How
me
to
this
leverage
thing,
it.
how to leverage it for my career or for my, beauty regime or relationship status or whatever. It's like, it's so not about that. What you're tapping into more what she's about. It's about this kind of like, yeah, deep dropping into like what wants to come through, what is happening, what is the creative impulse. And sometimes the creative impulse is cleaning spaces up, doesn't mean it's always about doing art. Sometimes it's about, it goes in weird directions, but whatever is serving your purposes, if we can tune into that, I think our whole lives are transformed by that.
Well, because it's like, I think part of what it is that the equivalent in my life to the like counting my breaths, which I love counting my breaths, but like in my life when I'm like, I have to do this and I can't do that, and that's taking me too long, and I'm always behind, and da 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 da, and this huge to-do list. When I'm in that space, that's like totally like fight or flight. Like that's not.
It's right here too.
Yeah, it's like, and so it's like I versus like when I'm more rounded, it's like, oh, you're just like, it's like flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's like if I am doing some creative project, there is no time or space. Like,
right.
It's like whoosh, a bunch of time passed, or also I feel like a whole bunch of time goes by and I look at the clock and it's like, how is that only 45 minutes? Like that felt like I just did 3 hours worth of something. Like time is really weird in that state, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so this might be, is this like, I feel like I'm not, this is not succinct, but I feel like I've been like in that messy middle, this whole conversation of like trying to like grok and give words to it. But yeah.
Well, I think what I heard you say was that you dropped into a different state and you permissioned yourself to just do what you wanted to do in the moment.
It feels like a clear strategy to employ moving forward.
And then you're like, I want to create more of these bubbles in the future of just like allowing myself to say, what do you want to do right now?
Yes.
And that feels revolutionary to you because that's new.
It's not how I've it's not been my modus operandi.
Yeah.
I used to when I worked at the bake, well, whatever, when the bakery worked on me too. And I often worked on my birthday, and I was a pastry baker. Most of my shifts were as pastry baker. I kind of did everything. But if it was my birthday, I was like, cool, I'm the morning pastry person, but it's my birthday, so I get to make whatever I want. And so I would, I'm like, well, I'll make scones and, I'll make a lot of the regular stuff. And then I would just like make some outrageous dessert, even if it was a Wednesday. And I would like bring samples out to the dining room and like, and it's like, people are like, whoa, what, I'm like, it's my birthday. I get to make whatever I want. And this is what I want to make. So enjoy.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and so like, it's not that I've never done this for myself before, but I don't know what I do feel like I just unlocked an ancestral judgment should lock that was kind of keeping me really constrained. I feel like somehow like it started when I said, wait, I'm not going to do the market at Christmas.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah, you've been unraveling this. Like you're breaking like an old routine or something. There's an old patterning in there that's like being shook up, and you started it, and now you're realizing like, oh, I can just keep doing that. I can keep interrupting this pattern and making choices that feel, like in the moment that feel more aligned for me.
And I think part of it is accepting what is about like myself and like how I operate. It's like, how do you get rid of should? How do I get rid of should as like it's not very motivating. Should's awful, but it's shame, right? We've gone back to shame. It's like, how do you step back from that?
The way I do it is I always say, what part of me is, who's telling me I should? And that's a good question to ask, because of course it's a part of yourself, but like try to identify that voice in you, okay, if I should go do that, who's saying that? Like what part of my inner being is saying that? And if I can grab that voice, it's usually like a part that's coming from the culture.
Yeah.
And then I can be like, oh, well, okay, that part thinks I should, but do I want to? Then no, like I don't have to do that. And it is, this is the work of the world. Like we have to, before we can even, whatever has to come through, from our own lives, our own unique spark, we've got to be really aware of all of these layers of the brain. The mind is so powerful when it comes to allowing ourselves to do our creative, authentic selves. If that's what we're here to do, which is what I believe, that's what we're here on the planet to do, is be our creative, authentic selves. Then the work is exactly what you're doing. It's just interrupting the old patterns and shaking it up and being like, well, what about this? What about this? What if I just do this right now?
And I think a really key part of it for me is that was also part of my big writing thing earlier in the week, is that how do I show up? Particularly right now, because I'm working with 625 wild things regularly. It's really, really important that I am well seated and grounded, and as much as I can, that I'm walking into that space in a very aligned with love space. Like that is really, really important to me. And when I was really stressed out in November, there were a couple times I was not able to do that. And like, like I didn't like, do anything. I didn't yell at anybody or anything, but like, you can't roll with it. And kids are like magnifiers of anything you're feeling. So like if I walk in and I'm feeling like grounded, they're like shook, they're like magnets, right? And they're in like everything is calmer. Like I'm
going to say everybody's like that. Kids are more obvious.
Yes. Yes.
That applies to everyone.
Yes. And so like, what is my job? What do I have to do to be in that space, which is better for me and it's better for everyone I interact with? And that's how I got here.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, and the other thing is like, I think we've talked about this before. It's like, you have to know what kind of machine you are. I'm going to use a machine. Like if there are all these different kinds of scales, this is the thing I'm always thinking about. Cause I have this like super accurate gram scale in my studio that used to be, it was like a scientific scale. And it has to be, it has little feet because it has to be absolutely level in order to work, right? And it's
Mhm.
got this little bubble, and so you got to like, and it's an old manual one. It's super cool. Anyway, and so you have to like, you have to do all this like adjusting in order for it to weigh things accurately. But like if you're driving down the road and then there's like the big like weigh stations for semi trucks, they don't give a shit. Or you go to the dump, and like you just drive on and then like, there's a bunch of gravel, whatever. It's like, I know what kind of scale I am at this point in my life in my
Mhm.
50s.
Yep.
And it's like, if society keeps telling me that I'm like a highway way station, and society can just kind of F off because that is
Right.
not the kind of scale that I am. And it's like, so what is it that I need in order to show up to do the job that I'm here for?
There you
And
go.
and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I need to like, it's not being yeah, I need to like turn to those voices that are having these thoughts, these societal culture messages,
Mhm.
and challenge it.
Yeah.
Like
And that's what nurture culture is right there. I mean, you just described it. Churning to these societal thoughts and challenging them and then speaking to our own selves in a nurture tone. Like, what
yes,
do I need right now? What do I want to do right now? As if you were talking to a beloved, in the most beloved child or most
yes,
beloved being that you could think of that you cherish more than anything. That's how we talk to ourselves, or that would be hopefully how we talk to ourselves. I know that's not always the case because I hear myself, maybe less and less over time. I used to have a drill sergeant in there that would just be like, all right, Edward, get up. I mean, it was bad. And that voice is luckily not as strong these days. But I
yeah.
do think that um that's it. That's nurture culture because we can't extend it to other people unless we do it ourselves. Everything else is, if you think you can, you can't. I mean, it's just impossible. You
Did
cannot, you can be of service, yeah, but
at a
nurture culture
cost.
is
Yeah.
not of service without the inner piece engaged first. Like you have to be overflowing with this groundedness, sense of boundaries and what you want and who you are. Like you said, yourself. This, even just knowing yourself, that's where we start. Like, what do I need to feel grounded? And it probably isn't what the culture is telling you. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's up for you to decide. And everyone's different. There's no one fit for, and day by day we're different. Seasonally we're different,
Yeah, yeah,
so it's a
yeah.
constant checking in. Like, what do I need right now? What do I need today? What does my body want? What does my brain want? I mean, it's a whole conversation that we just bypass in the culture. And we're like, we don't even ask you those questions. We'll just tell you what to do. This is how you want to look. This is how you should dress. This is, and it's the weirdest thing because what are you talking about? Like, nobody knows that but me. Like,
Yeah.
how I mean, that is, and again, going back to Shakti, like my Shakti is the only information I need. Like my desire. What do I want? What I want? And then what do I need? Right.
Totally. And I
Because if
think
my
it's
needs aren't
interesting.
met, you can't go to desire before you're like, you have to be like in that place of my needs
But
are met.
when I am dropped into my center, it's like, you can see those, it's like I can see through the bullshit
Oh, yeah.
of the messaging in a totally different way. And so it's like, if I'm not doing whatever it is that I need to do to like stay, like to like reconnect to center, I'm like so easy to push around, and it's all in my head. It's all internalized at this point, right?
Yes.
I don't have
Yes.
to have somebody come and say something to me because
Yeah.
it's already happened.
Yep.
So, and did I tell you about the have we talked about my bear dream?
Mm-mm.
This is
Nope.
like a long, long time ago.
I don't think so.
Well, because like part of my like mission for this year is to turn and face the bear,
Ah, okay.
which comes, I used to be, for my whole life, a reoccurring nightmare theme was being chased by bears, and being like, and then like trying to like hide, and like they can come in the house, and like, anyway, so like I had all these bear dreams, like, well, up until age 32. And I, and also like I did art about bears. Anyway, this bear thing. And then the night that I had given birth to my second child, I had the bear dream, and I was being chased through the woods by this huge bear. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, and I just stopped, and I turned around and I said to the bear, stop it, stop chasing me. And the bear stood up and said, okay. And then turned around and got back on all fours, and then scampered off into the woods. And I have not, knock on wood, I have not had a being chased by bears dream since that night.
There you go.
And I do feel like bear is like part, like protective spirit for me. It's like bear is like trying to get me to stand up for myself.
Exactly. I was like, that's a boundary, right? It totally respected the boundary. It was just like, why won't you set the boundary?
Yes.
Turn around and be like, I don't want this. It's like, there you go. That's all you needed to say. That was the message.
That was the message. And so like, that's been super helpful.
I mean, bears are very nurturing too, which is interesting. I mean, I would say they're a symbol of nurture culture. Bears are like,
oh yeah,
nurturing
the mother. And so, in the most wonderful way.
Yeah. And the hibernation and the self-care. I mean, just like the way they are as a species, I think they're really nurturing and focused on nurture. And so it's interesting that you're running from that.
Yes. Yeah. And so since then, so like now that's like 22 years ago, 20, something like that, 20, so it's quite a while ago that all happened. But since then, like I've had this, I used to have a bear keychain, but then I lost the bear, but I decided that bear is like an acronym also for me since then. So it's like, it used to be boys, but then I transitioned it to beloveds, because it's like, I expanded it. So it's like B for beloveds. Like, am I making time to be fully present with my beloveds? That's really important. And then E is for like exercise outside, or the environment, like exercise, but specifically exercise outside. And then A for art making, of course, because that's really important. And then R is for rest.
There you go.
So it's like that, if I can like just prioritize beloveds, being out, exercising outside, art making, and rest, then I am like a superhero. I can like, if I take care of that, that takes care of that's balancing, getting my levels right. And then I can do all kinds of miraculous things. But once I like, and so it's like, once I start noticing that I'm not doing some of those things, when I'm too busy to go for a walk, like for a couple of weeks, like not just like, if I'm too busy if I'm not doing any art, if I'm not sleeping enough, or my sleep is disrupted, it's like, that's like a like, that's me treating myself like a highway scale instead of what I am.
Yeah. I love it. Bear, beloveds, exercise, exercise, art, and rest. That's Iris. That's great. Everybody's got to have their own version of that we know, like, if you don't have it, develop it. Cause it's a really nice thing to be like, to check in. Like, if I'm feeling crappy or I've spun out, like which one of those isn't happening right now? Like, which one of those I skipped over, denied myself, and why? These are all like good questions to ask. And
then also it's like a tangible action.
Yeah.
It's like, if I'm feeling like crap, it's like, wait, where am I at on the bear scale? And it's like, oh, I haven't done any of those. It's like, okay, what can I do right now? It's like, well, I can go outside for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
When can I not go outside for 5
minutes? Isn't on the list, but
yeah. But it's, that was following my Shakti.
There you go. Following your Shakti. So I'm just saying that I think that what you just elaborated through this whole thing, which was really great, was that, we have to create our own internal mechanism to guide ourselves through these crazy times that we live in. And like, the culture is going to give us chaos. I tune into the culture, social media, the news, whatever. It's just, it is like chaotic, negative, crazy mess. It's just like, blah, just horrible things. And so
Yes.
we tune into that. We start all these, energies come in. And I feel like we have to be really discerning now as we enter into this year. I think that get your guidelines for yourself down. They're completely personal. They don't have to do anything to do with what everybody else is screaming at you that you should be doing in your life. Like, what do you know that you need? And just devote yourself to them. And then keep asking, like, and what else wants to come through? What else, do I need? And if the impulse comes, like, yeah, go for it. Like, create some space. And I think the more we do that, the more they come. This is also like how you develop that intuitive sense. Like, when we keep overriding them and do the other, like, do whatever else we think we should do, those messages get softer. They're harder to hear. And the cultural messages are like what becomes our drumbeat. Like, oh, I know I have to do this. I have to play a lot. But the more we lock into like, oh no, I'm on my own path here. This is what I do. I don't care if anybody else does it or, understands it. Like, this is what I do. Then you'll get more information. Like, as you tap in, like, more will come. Like, oh, you're creating space for that. Well, so creating space has been really important. Like you said, just creating this block of time, like this empty space, or even like physically cleaning, like creating space has been a real theme for me as well. Like, just make space. You don't need to understand why. Just, my mantra has always been clear the channel. You don't need to understand what's coming through the channel. You don't need to plan for it. Just clear the channel and then trust that it'll come through. And then when it does, listen to it. You asked for, then, so that's been mine. I don't know. I have to create a little animal acronym. I like your bear a lot. I'm like,
you can have a bear. It's
I'd have to create my own, but it's
yeah.
Good. I like it. I like bear. I often use bear in my past as my password for things.
She's over that now.
I know I don't do that anymore. Just so you know, I'm on to new things, but that was one of mine for a while. So I always say, I had a really when I was a tree sitter, I had a really amazing experience with a bear. I was coming back from the tree sits and I saw this thing on the road, and I got closer and closer to it. And it was pretty far away down this timber road. And finally, when I got close enough, I realized it was a very large bear, and it was walking on the road towards me, and it didn't smell me. I must have been like, out of the scent wind from it. And we got really close. We got within like a couple car lengths of each other. And I finally was like, I cleared my throat. I was like, hello, what else to do? And it stood up. And when they stand up, they are huge. And when you were telling me the dream, I had this, I have been in the presence of a bear that stood up like that, and they're really big. And I wasn't afraid. I probably should have been. I was not. We've been living in the forest. It was like the whole tree sitter thing. It's like anytime we ran into animals like that, it felt like,
a visitation.
And it stood up and it looked at me and I looked at it, and it was like, yeah, we had a moment, and I felt very like, totally like, I'm here protecting the forest and you're a part of the forest. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so she just stepped off, like just off the side of the road, and let me pass. But then I was like completely paranoid. And then I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to make noise or something. So I was like, oh, I was talking really loudly, like, I'm right here, just on the side of the road, blah, blah. And then the other tree sitter that was coming behind me on his bike, like rode up behind me. I didn't hear him because it was coming down a hill, and he heard me, and he couldn't see the bear at all. And he just heard me being like, here, walking along. He's like, what? You're totally crazy. Like, why are you yelling to yourself? And I was like, because there's a bear like right there. And he's like, yeah, sure there is. But it was a powerful moment. I've never forgotten it. It was like, to be that close in the presence of a bear standing up looking at you and just being like locked eyes, like, okay,
that's
it was cool.
Wow.
Really cool.
Yeah, no, like that. Yep.
We had lots of visitations when we were like, a coyote once came up and just basically like sat like at our feet. I was having this like really intense conversation with that person who just came out of the woods and like broad daylight just sat down and like looked at us like right in the eyes, like stared at us. And we're like, whoa, like this huge coyote. I was like, this is crazy. They don't even let themselves be seen. And it was like such a direct message. It was cool. I'm just saying the world's magical. If we allow for these, like, the more you create space for magic, the more it comes. Like, we are not, we're just not alone out here, you know? We're not struggling. This is like a whole magical weaving that we're dancing around in. And if you start to drop into what grounds you, then you can get out of your head, get out of the culture, turn off your media stream. I swear to God, there's nothing on there that's going to be helpful at this point as we enter into this new year, you know, like really clear energy for yourself so you can know like what feeds you personally. I think that's really powerful.
Just to remember that we all have that star stuff in
Yep,
us, right? So like
absolutely.
that, if we are all one,
Mm,
then that wisdom is within everyone.
yes.
So,
And everything.
and everything.
And we're
Ev-
all just reflecting it to each other too, which is why it's so great to be grounded for the other pieces. Like one of the things that I came to me recently was internal family systems, right? So we have all these parts of ourselves that we talk to and we argue back and forth, and there's the part that should and the part that does, and blah, blah, blah. But then I had this idea that, oh, not only is it internal family systems like all the parts of me, but humanity itself are all
Yes.
the parts. Like this is also all the parts of me. And so we all are here reflecting humanity to each other as all of our parts. So when you bump into other people or hear about other people or hear their stories or songs or anything, like these are all you. These are parts
Yes.
of humanity that is you reflecting to you. Like it's
What
there's
is it? There's like
it's
is it
crazy.
like I don't I don't know where it's from. Like Alakesha, like the I am another you.
Yeah. Because we're
Where's
just like
that
one big
from?
family anyway. Oh, I don't know.
There's a phrase and I don't know what culture it's from, but
I'm not sure.
that's just me. Basically, I am another you.
Yeah.
Hello. Like,
Yeah.
or you are another me. Like, and like the ancient Celts had a thing of like hello. That basically the greeting was like, I salute you as a free person, meaning
That's
I,
nice.
a free person, salute
Yeah.
you, free person.
Yeah.
Like aloha is kind of like that too, right? Like the as my understanding, I've never even been to Hawaii. So, but I haven't. I've never been to Hawaii. So,
You should
but
go.
isn't that
Yeah,
aloha is like
yeah, like I think there's a lot of definitely a lot of indigenous
versions?
a lot of versions of this that are out there that you know we're all parts of each other. But it was interesting because I was listening to this whole thing about internal family systems, and I was like, oh wait, big family system is everybody. Because if you
Yes.
see an angry person, a scared person, you know, we all have that in ourselves too. And like, oh, there's me being freaked out, there's me being angry, there's me being this, but you know, lost, stressed, blah, whatever. And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, it becomes this way of just seeing yourself in the world, you know. And so we help each other by being the part that other people see of themselves that is like grounded or helping or nurturing ourselves,
Yes.
you know. So it's work for us, but it's for all of us.
It is
100%.
for all of us. And
Yeah,
it's
there's no
like,
separation, there can't be.
right. And I think it's once you kind of open up to that, you realize it's like anything that's happened in the history of the world, it's possible to happen. There's no I could be a murderer. If there's been murder, then I
Oh,
could be that.
I think we have a new
If there's
podcast
been
starting.
yeah, if there's been compassion,
Iris is a
I can be that.
murderer.
I know, not really, but like you know what I mean? But no, really, like
No, 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 it's we're all capable. Yes, yes, yes,
if it's within
for
humanity,
sure. Yes,
it is partly within me. You know,
yes,
like it's the
yes.
potential is within me. The potential is
The
absolutely
potential to
within
absolutely
everything. For
yes.
everything is everywhere and
And they've
everyone.
all, you know, everyone's always said like you actually don't know what you're capable of until you're in the situation where all of a sudden that part activates. And that's another thing about traveling that I'm interested in because the more I think we put ourselves in different situations, we meet different parts of ourselves. Like
Yes.
literally, I meet them in the world. I meet more people of doing different things that are different parts, but also like internally, like more
Yes.
parts emerge because you're giving them new experiences to like engage with and grow and learn from. I think that's part of what I'm interested in when I travel is just to meet all these new parts of myself that start popping out and to see
Yes.
other parts of myself that I didn't even know were possible in the world, like seeing people doing things that I didn't even know could be done because I have not seen it before. I've never even experienced it, but it's
Ah,
out there.
yes.
So let's
Right.
leave it.
Right. So cool. That's a good.
Yeah,
Good.
that's a good ender. I think that
Mhm.
yeah, it's a good way to think of the new year. It's just like you're be excited because you're gonna bump into parts of yourself out there in the world and parts of yourself in here in the world as we keep trying new things. Like, try new things, mix it up. It's
I
good.
moved the toilet paper roll holder into a new
Oh
spot.
my God.
I was like, you know what? I'm moving that.
Wow.
And
That's
I'm
like a
like,
whole new Iris.
muscle memory.
Capable of murder and capable of moving the toilet paper.
Well, just like it's in a new spot. So like all your muscle memory for
That's
25
right.
years has been that's where the
It's
toilet
so
paper is.
good. It's good for your
Yeah. And I
50s
was
to
like,
mix
what
it
else can
up,
I
man.
move? We just moved the furniture around like a few weeks before the boys got home. We redid the main floor and we moved all the furniture around. I'm
You
like,
guys are
I
on
want that
fire.
everywhere.
Yeah. You're on fire. I love you so
It's
much.
so man. My little small world.
Until next time.
I
All of
love
us,
you.
all of us together.